As I begin this recording, a friendly reminder to please keep your audio and video disabled at all times. Nothing you put in the chat box will appear in the recording. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Maggie and Sandy, you're welcome to take over.
Thank you so much, Brooke. It's just amazing to be here again. Every month we have this beautiful opportunity to gather together to create and cultivate this new wellness language. And with me, I am so excited to have my esteemed guest speaker, beautiful soul and treasured healer, Sandy Blaine, Masters of Applied Positive Psychology. You guys, we're in for a real treat today. As you all know, now before Sandy comes on, I want to share a little bit about her amazingness. As you know, every month we meet here. If this is your first time joining us, you're in for a treat. Every month we talk about a different aspect of what it means to optimize you. You as in the universal you. What do we all need, right? As human beings, for our bodies to be healthy, for our minds to thrive, and for us to soar in our spirit. So OptimizeU, what does that mean for you? Thinking about that, every month we meet together to talk about a different facet of our wellness. And so in January, we started to talk about daily habits to thrive. Then in February, we touched on the idea of heart-centered wellness. How are we connected from our heart and using our hands to do our work as we reach out to share our gifts and talents with the world? And last month, we were privileged to have Dr. Brown talking about sleep, the amazing importance of sleep as a foundation to our overall health and wellness. And so without further ado, this month, we're going to dive into this concept of happiness. Now, how many of you, if you want to type into the chat, 1 to 10, let's go ahead and do some self-assessment here. Tell us where you're at in your Thrive chart. 1 being, I kind of don't even, look forward to waking up, right? The little eyes. Or 10, I'm here. 10, I am thriving. I am just flying. I can't wait to get up. I have so many beautiful passion projects that I can't wait to start. So kind of where are you in general? The average emotions, 1 to 10, if you want to post in the chat or just write it down for your own self. As we self-reflect, one of the most important times of the day is the first upon awakening. Check in with yourself. What's my energy? And then we notice the patterns. And that's where we can step into our beautiful stance of creating each choice in life that will nourish us and sustain us. So we make today a great day, and it helps to fill and fuel us to make tomorrow an even better day. So great, I'm seeing some 5s, some 6s, some 7s. Thanks everybody for sharing. So let's dive in a little bit as we're going to look at the science behind why movement matters. And really curious for me, I'd love to know what your highlights are going to be by the end of Sandy's share. Write down your number 1 aha moment. And if you have questions, please post them in the chat so we can discuss them at the end. So as we're going to be looking into the science behind movement, the mindset, how it is healthy for our brains to move, let me just introduce you to our guest speaker, Sandy Blaine. We're going to call her the wellness and happiness expert. She is a consultant, speaker, and author. You guys, I want you to go out and get the book. And as we are here in our San Antonio Public Library adult learning community, check out her 2 books, Yoga for Computer Users. So how many of us use computers? How many of us want to be more flexible in our spine, more energy in our body, right? And then how about Yoga for Healthy Knees? How many of us have issues with knees? 2 really important topics, 2 beautiful pathways to discovering how to bring more of that holistic wellness. So Sandy's based in San Francisco Bay, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us from the West Coast. Now, Sandy has worked with many high-profile technology and wellness companies. She develops wellness curricula. So if you want to know how to get from ick to thriving, Sandy is amazing. So I'm so happy to introduce her. Without further ado, Sandy, please say hello. Tell us a little bit about your history, how you got to be here at the intersection between positive psychology and how we're using that to create our own paths to wealth and well-being.
Thank you so much, Maggie, for that nice introduction. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. And I think I will, as I start to introduce myself, also share my screen and start with my little slideshow. Give me just a second here.
So as she's getting that loaded, I want to tell you guys another cool thing. She's been the in-house yoga instructor over at Pixar Animation. So she's just amazing. I can't say enough cool things about you, but let's go ahead. Sandy Blaine, take it away.
Yeah, I always feel like that is what people think is the coolest thing. I started at Pixar. I actually left about 6 months ago after having been there for decades. I'm just doing other consulting and writing, but I did start at Pixar when they were a startup, before there was even the word startup. And then that just kept expanding over the years. But I started there and in general as a yoga teacher. That was really my original background. I started teaching yoga in college and really loved doing it. I had my own studio for many years, as well as this kind of consulting gig. I mean, at first it was just lunchtime yoga, but then this kind of long-term consulting gig at Pixar and working with other companies as well. And along the way, I wrote for some of the yoga magazines, and then wrote the 2 books that Maggie mentioned. And in 2013, I sold my studio. And the idea was that I had these 2 big pieces going, the consulting and my own studio. And it was a lot to juggle, and I really wanted to write a 3rd book. And I knew I couldn't add another thing. So one of my teachers at my yoga studio took over, and I started taking some classes to research this book that I had in mind. I was really fascinated by the link between physical health and emotional well-being. And I thought I was going to take a health psychology class. I'm a big fan of the work of Kelly McGonigal, and I know her slightly, and that's her field. But I am landed in this positive psychology class. I saw it in the Cal Berkeley Extension catalog, and I just knew it was for me. And it was a really great class. It was a 15-week seminar. It was meant to be an introduction, but also what they call a bridge class for people who were between undergrad and grad school. And although it had been a long time since I'd been an undergrad, that is what it ended up being for me. I learned about this positive psychology master's program, and I applied. I thought, wow, I'd love to do that. I applied and I went. I finished at the end of 2016. And one of my main objectives was to research this book that I wanted to write, to narrow the topic and focus it, and to really research it. And I did do that. I'm working on that book, but I got so much more out of it as well. And it really changed my consulting practice. And so I would say my specialty my book is about how mind-body integration supports happiness and overall flourishing. And my work is about all of the places where mind-body science and positive psychology, or the science of human well-being, intersect. So I'll be talking about that. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So positive psychology, also known as the science of well-being, is really the study and application of well-being. How can we increase the amount of happiness, well-being, and flourishing in the world? So we'll be looking at this through the lens of the mind-body connection and how movement and physical activity can boost our well-being across dimensions. So today I'm going to be using the Perma construct. I think we may come back to that slide and do a little breathing exercise later, but I want to move through the material right now. So the Perma theory of flourishing comes from Martin Seligman. He was one of the founders of positive psychology, he was the head of my program, or is the head of the program that I went through, and was recently named the #1 most influential psychology scholar by Academic Influence magazine. So you may or may not have heard of this Perma construct, but it's the Perma stands for the dimensions that Dr. Seligman sees as essential to human flourishing, that together comprise really thriving well-being, or what his favorite term is flourishing. And the acronym stands for these dimensions: positive emotion, engagement, relationship, meaning, and accomplishment. And we'll go through how movement and exercise relate to each of these dimensions, the bidirectional relationship between movement and exercise and each of the Perma dimensions. So I'm going to suggest that you think or write about, and I'm just going to go back to the dimensions now, that you think or write about which of these dimensions might be your comfort zone dimension. So as we go through, you can think about these dimensions. Typically we're strong in one or two, and others, we're really working on. And so what this can give us is an idea of, again, that bidirectional relationship, and how we can use our exercise program or our chosen exercise and health activities to expand in the areas that we are less comfortable in, that are more of our reach or challenge areas, and how we can use the ones we're strong in to find more juice in our exercise or health activities, more motivation. So that'll be something that you can do along the way as we move through this. Some questions to think about. What are signs that you're overstressed? How does stress show up in your body, in your behavior, right? In your life? Are there triggers that you're aware of that stress you out or kind of set that stress domino effect in motion? Are there healthy coping strategies that you already have, right? Ones that support your well-being. And you think of a time that you rose to a challenge or overcame a setback, and how you did it. What strengths what personal strengths did you employ, or what coping strategies did you find that worked? So those are some journal exercises that you can think about along the way as we go through this. So going back to the Perma construct, there is no mention of physical well-being in Dr. Seligman's construct. And in fact, in general, his is not the only theory of well-being from positive psychology. There are a number of leading theories, and they have some things in common and some differences, but most of them do not mention the body. Until pretty recently, the positive psychology in general was really a neck-up discipline. And that comes from psychology in general, right? Which is that until very recently in the history of psychology, physical and mental health were viewed as and treated separately. And our culture definitely has that bias toward mind-body dualism. That's a whole topic in and of itself. But I'll just say that part of my mission is to kind of abolish the idea of mind-body dualism. We really are, it has a long historical and spiritual roots, that separation of mind and body. But my belief is that there is no biology without psychology, right? Every human experience, every moment, and everything meaningful in our lives comes to us through having and being our body. And we are really, right, one completely integrated system. But again, for decades, mind-body science and positive psychology evolved separately along parallel tracks. And it's only in recent years that that's begun to change, that we really are learning there's no actual separation. And so I like to think that I'm part of that movement. We're each a fully integrated being operated on a continuous bidirectional feedback loop. And so well-being is really an embodied experience. Excuse me, I'm just gonna try and clear my throat. And as positive psychology and mind-body science have begun to intersect, we've gotten just incredible proliferating research that demonstrates all of the many benefits of exercise for our psychological health, right? So we tend to think of exercise as something we do for our bodies, but in fact, movement and exercise boost mental and emotional and even cognitive well-being. And the more we learn about that, the more these two disciplines have begin to intersect. And that's where I see my work. So why is this, that exercise has such a powerful impact on our brains? And here we bring in evolutionary science, where there's a leading theory that human brain development is inextricably linked with physical movement. And we really are not meant to be sedentary creatures. We thrive when we move. You can see the link between our physical abilities and our ability to move and brain development when we look at babies developing and how they learn to walk, right? First to crawl and then to walk, and then typically language starts, right? That lights up those centers of the brain. But the idea is, from evolutionary science, the theory is that unlike plants, animals had to learn to move to get food. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty motivated to get up off the couch and get food when I'm hungry. And that our brain, that the human brain is really based on that ability, right? So we're going to go back to Perma and look at each of those dimensions, as I mentioned, starting with, right, positive emotion, the first one, and look at how movement and exercise really does support overall flourishing and how each of these elements or dimensions can be applied to physical movement. So let's talk about positive emotions. Experiencing positive emotions on a regular basis is both a symptom and a key to well-being. And Maggie had you use the chat to think about how you're doing today. And part of that is where on the scale your positive affect is, or how much positive emotion you are regularly experiencing, how your mood it tends to be in general, and where it is now. Increasing positive emotions helps build internal resources that support overall well-being, and physical activity boosts positive emotions. There's really no question about that. And I'm going to say, if you got up from wherever you're sitting right now and did 5 or 6 jumping jacks or 10, you would get an energy and mood boost. And in fact, even if you close your eyes for a moment and imagine doing it, it changes your brain chemistry. So movement and exercise are mood boosting. And we call positive psychology sometimes the science of happiness, but that can really be a bit of a generic term. There's all kinds of positive emotions. And I have a list here that you can look at. And as you look at this list, you can think of a situation or event recently that elicited a positive emotion for you, and actually labeling that emotion, really thinking about what that emotion was, can increase the benefit of that emotion, that really sense of internalizing and enjoying that emotion. Why don't we actually close our eyes for a moment and just take a pause. I have a lot to talk about here. I'm going to be talking a lot. Let's take a pause for quiet and think about that most recent event or most significant recent event where you felt that emotion. Okay. Take another moment and really recall feeling that emotion. And notice how your brain chemistry changes just from the memory of it. You might even experience that emotion all over again. All right, and when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes again. So those positive emotions might have been more elusive over the last couple of years during the pandemic. Depression rates reportedly tripled among American adults in 2020. And for many people, honestly, those emotions, the positive emotions, are elusive in general. Right? We do have an epidemic of anxiety and depression in our culture. And again, that's a whole other topic, but movement and exercise are mood boosting. It's a go-to place. Even small bursts of exercise can really help bring those positive emotions to the surface on a regular basis. Physical activity has proven to be an extremely effective antidepressant. It's actually pretty amazing, the studies that they're doing. For many people, exercise is more effective than medication for preventing or curing depression. But even for people with more serious mental illness that require medication, pharmaceutical intervention, the research shows that those medications are more effective in conjunction with exercise and nutrition. And I think that's really great news, right? So I want to pivot for a moment to talk about this upward spiral. Barbara Fredrickson is a leading positive psychology professor, and her upward spiral theory of positive emotions describes that the positive emotions that you experience when you're doing a new healthy behavior, such as exercise, it creates this escalating positive feedback loop where the positive emotions that you experience reinforce your motivation to continue the activity. And that's that, that upward spiral feeling. And I can say that was my experience. When I learned about the upward spiral, it made so much sense to me because I experienced exactly that when I started yoga, which is a really long time ago. But, I felt so great after my first class and it was kind of amazing. And I thought, wow, could I feel this good more often? And it was very motivating. But what it does is it moves the healthy behavior, exercise, or whatever goal you have from a should to a more organically or intrinsically motivated behavior. So as you continue to feel those positive effects, right, that's this upward boost that you get, where the brain chemistry boost and increase in positive emotions that you get from physical movement will be self-reinforcing. And those benefits are both immediate, that wow, that I got after my first yoga class, and really continue to enjoy, although not so dramatically, right? You get, there's such a thing as right, just getting used to things, but hedonic adaptation, that's known as, but the benefits are both immediate and cumulative. So if you want to share any experience in the chat, before we go on to engagement, the next dimension in Perma, if you want to share anything in the chat of your experience of something that you found that boosted your mood or positive emotions significantly, and that you found that to be motivating to continue, any of your own experience of having a upward spiral experience, please feel welcome to share that. it will be very interesting to everyone. All right, so going on to the engagement in Perma, which is the experience of being fully absorbed by an activity. So Martin Seligman, again, my professor, defined engagement as flow, and people might be aware of the book Flow, written by his colleague, Professor Csikszentmihalyi, Csikszentmihalyi. That's really a mouthful. You'd have to see it spelled out. I might have it in another slide, but I'm not sure. But that flow of being completely absorbed, but there are really different levels of engagement. Like, I depart from him a little bit there, in that there are curiosity, mindfulness, motivation, excitement. There are all types of engagement. We don't have to be in that flow state to feel engagement, but that flow, the experience of timelessness, of complete immersion in our chosen activity, could be defined as the highest level of engagement. And physical activity can lead to that flow state, but also those other types of engagement that I mentioned, right? Just enthusiasm, right? But one reason that we can be in that flow state when we are engaged in physical activity is this fundamental truth that our bodies are always in the reality of the present moment, that no matter where your mind is, your body is right here in physical reality, in the here and now. And so physical activity offers us the opportunity to get out of our heads and to be fully present. And so I'm going to have you, again, close your eyes just briefly and get settled in your body. Take a deep breath, or 2 or 3, just to connect more with your physical experience. Give your breath your attention. And as you do, really feel yourself in your body. Feel your body in the here and now. And take another moment just to really savor that. And just feeling your body from the inside. Savoring that experience of being an embodied being. And then go ahead and open your eyes again. So many people do report high levels of engagement, like the runner's high or yoga bliss, similar things with swimming, that high or that feeling of bliss. And it is that sense of being fully present in your body and at one with your breath. It's a pleasurable experience. And that's one reason that physical activity can bring us into that flow state, or that high level sense of engagement. But again, any level of engagement, right, leads to positive emotions and more well-being. So another aspect of engagement is just enjoyment, right? And finding activities that are enjoyable for their own sake. So enjoyment, I think, is the more important thing than getting than the hard workout, right? The workout that gives you all of those objective health measures, the heart rate. It's an enjoyable activity that's going to give you those positive emotions, and engagement is, first of all, you're going to be more likely to stick with it. But also, if you're having to drag yourself through something, there's diminishing returns to that beyond even sticking with it. That just doesn't lead to higher well-being. It's so person activity fit, something you enjoy, something that you feel passion for. And that's another piece. Research has found that passion comes in two flavors: harmonious passion and obsessive passion. And I think I've seen that in the yoga world, where people are so driven that they've lost their enjoyment or passion. And actually, I live on a lake and there's a running trail. And I see that with people who are running, the people who are just doing it because they should, versus the people who really love running. And I think we want to find the thing that really sparks our own passion and motivation. So there's no one size fits all, but choosing that activity, the one that you really enjoy, because that obsessive passion in the end, or the should, the dragging ourselves through the should, has detrimental effects on well-being overall. And I just don't feel like well-being should be a list of shoulds. Like, we have a lot of shoulds in our life, but I think that well-being should be enjoyable, and that's the goal. So intrinsic motivation, that's where it's at. Intrinsic motivation trumps self-discipline, I think, in every way in terms of well-being. And that's what we should be looking for, is not rigid self-discipline, but looking for the things that really call to us in our lives. And so that's where I think helping connect our exercise, our health behaviors, our health goals to Perma is really helpful. So moving on to relationships. Relationships and social connection are essential to well-being. We know that, and there's a lot of research around that. And we see that's one thing that we see across constructs of well-being in every theory from positive psychology. Relationships are toward the top of what helps us feel meaning in our lives, enjoyment in our lives, and have positive relationships have incredible positive health impact as well. So sense of belonging, strong social bonds are really central to health and well-being. They ameliorate other health risk factors. So in fact, having positive relationships can allow you to be a couch potato if that's what you really want, because they do reduce the negative impact of that. They can ameliorate for the detrimental effects of stress, have a positive impact on longevity. But I'm not advocating that we be couch potatoes. I'm going to advocate that we combine exercise and social time to increase the well-being benefits of both. And I will say that for me, I have a steady yoga practice, and I did practice yoga throughout quarantine. But what I found, quite to my amazement, and I have a lot of gratitude for this, that the most reliable mental and emotional health boost for me during the pandemic was to get outside, exercise with a friend, to go on hikes with friends. During any day where I was feeling that I was, languishing or getting depressed, or feeling isolated, and spiraling down, I could turn that day around so quickly with that, and so significantly. And it was really amazing. I would get back home and feel so much better. So this is good because, right, if you're a person who doesn't like to exercise, the social aspect can be motivating. And again, wherever you come, and if you are a person who does naturally like to exercise, combining it with your social life, your social connections, will again boost the well-being benefits of both. And in terms of those hikes, that was a triple whammy of exercise and movement, social connection, and being outdoors. So it was like a triple well-being boost. So if you're, a runner or somebody who swims or bikes outside, there's such an opportunity there. And even for solo activities, there's a social aspect that's available. Being physically active offers us so many opportunities to strengthen our social bonds. Moving to meaning and what we find most valuable in our lives. So we're almost through the Perma, right? Fourth piece of Perma. I think of meaning as being like, some of us have a really clear idea of our mission statement in life and our purpose, but not everybody, because some people are kind of more spread out, right, in terms of different things being meaningful. But what those things are that get you out of bed in the morning, that make your day, right, feel meaningful. And having a clear understanding of how our chosen physical activity, our health behaviors connect to our personal values helps with motivation, right? And also, again, finding more meaning and richness in our physical activity. So, in fact, there's a very recent research that shows a bidirectional relationship between being physically active and being purpose-driven, and that's something that's being studied quite a bit right now. So for some of us, we're naturally physically oriented people. And that sense of joy, engagement, mastery we find in physical activity is meaningful for its own sake. Like I just loved yoga when I found it, doing it for its own sake. And all of the physical and emotional benefits it gave me was great. But many people feel that about if you're a runner, a swimmer, a biker, a skier, right? But for other people, physical activity may be more of a reach or a challenge. You're not naturally physically inclined. And I just want to say, like, we want to find our intrinsic motivation. And so beating yourself up about that is not that. We want to accept who we really are and where we're at, and start where we are and meet ourselves where we are. So if for you, that's the case, being physically active may be more of a means to an end. And that's great, because you can connect it to what is more meaningful to you in your life, and then show up for that, more fully able to participate. And the photo I have here is sort of the classic example of wanting to keep up with our kids or our grandchildren, wanting to be able to play with them and really engage with them and at their energy level, which is a very challenging thing. I'll give my example of one of the kids in my life who is 5, likes to do this, what he calls fencing, which is out in the yard with 2 sticks, and you're really running around and trying to tap each other with those sticks. It's so fun to do that with him. And I'm so grateful that I can. I do definitely run out of energy before he does. When we started, it was if you tap the other person 3 times, they've won, but he kept upping that. And now it's like 12 times. So, it's a fun game that I feel I can only do because at my age, I have been a physically active person. So moving on to accomplishment. And actually, I just want to say one more thing about that, which is to go back to the very beginning of what I said about we're embodied creatures, and we experience all of these meaningful, right? These meaningful pieces of our lives through our bodies. So having a vessel where you can really enjoy those meaningful, right? Those aspects of life that are most meaningful to you is a part of motivation. And again, that bidirectional relationship between finding meaning in your physical activity and using your physical activity to support your sense of purpose or your most meaningful dimensions in your own life. And then accomplishment is our sense of competence and mastery. And it's also considered one of the 3 most fundamental pieces of psychological health for people. Or let me put that a different way. There are a couple of theories about psychological needs. Like we have physical needs like nutrition and hydration and sleep. And we have psychological needs. And one of those is a sense of accomplishment, a sense of competence or mastery. The others are a sense of belonging and a sense of autonomy, of having some control of our own lives, those 3 pieces. But physical activity can offer a really clear pathway to building a sense of achievement. As we persevere in whatever our physical pursuit is, we'll improve, right? If we're consistent, we'll improve and we'll enjoy the physical and emotional benefits. There'll be that upward spiral effect, intrinsic motivation, and all these things come together. So we can learn a growth mindset, which adds to that sense of mastery or accomplishment from physical activity. So if you think of something that you've done of increasing your number of laps, or running becomes easier, or, you know, if you do yoga, getting better at, right, finding more ease in those yoga poses as you practice them. I have an example from my own life, which is when I moved into my current apartment 11 years ago, I decided not to take the elevator. I'd actually been in a place which I was on the third floor, and it didn't have elevators. And now I'm on the fifth floor, and I thought, you know, I'm just going to keep taking the stairs. And the first 3 weeks, it actually was really noticeable, those last couple of flights, and these were longer flights of stairs too. The last couple of flights were really hard. And then it got so much easier after doing it consistently for 3 weeks. I also really learned something about habit building because it became totally automatic. Like I didn't even think about taking the elevator unless I was really tired. Obviously, I take the elevator if I have a bag of groceries, but and I'll also say it as an aside, it never got easier wearing a mask. That was the weird thing. I'd like been here for years and took the stairs automatically, and then found, oh wow, it's really challenging wearing a mask, but maybe it'll get easier. But it never got easier. But I still did, because it was a habit, still kept doing that. Anyway, growth mindset and habit building from physical activity. And then you can apply that to other areas of your life. And that was certainly true for me with yoga, the experience of mastery from yoga, that I learned to apply that to other things in my own life, including having to take statistics when I went to grad school, which was so daunting. But I felt like I did learn on my mat, oh, you know, I can get better at things if I keep trying. And that's really what a growth mindset is. So the last thing that I want to talk about is that even small goals is a very effective way to build your sense of accomplishment and self-efficacy, that growth mindset. And so if you look at my slide here, you may wonder like what the socks on the clothesline have to do with any of this. And it's this inspiring story that I read some time ago about a woman who felt like she was very, very out of shape. And she wanted to become more physically active. And she felt very self-conscious about like trying to walk or run out in public. And so she started doing laps around her clothesline. And she, in her backyard, just doing laps. And then she built up to walking in the neighborhood and became, in the end, a marathon walker, like, you know, not a running marathon, but a walking marathon. And I just thought that was really inspiring. But you really never need to get beyond the micro goals too, because even small bursts of movement throughout your day will give you so many well-being benefits, health and well-being benefits, where we think of health as the body and well-being as the brain, but really they're completely integrated and linked, right? There's no separation between those two. So if you wrote anything down in your journal that you're working on, right, I want to leave you with this, that we want to move those goals into the I want to category rather than the I should. And connecting your movement to Perma can help you do that. And then finally, this goal setting technique. So if you do have a goal that you're working on in terms of physical activity or anything else, WHOOP is a very well-researched goal setting technique where you, right, because the idea is a goal without a plan is just a wish. So you start with the wish or the goal, you visualize the outcome, the why, right? The why, which will help it be an I want to, and so the outcome that you hope to get from it, and then the obstacles that keep you from doing it, and then make your plan to deal with those obstacles. And so I think that will be the takeaway, a useful tool to help make it happen. The research is that really visualizing all 4 pieces, like sitting and visualizing them, makes this technique much more effective. So that's what I have to share with you today. And now I'm going to go way back through my slides. I wanted to make sure I got through everything. And there. And let's just close our eyes for a moment. And end by, again, just feeling your body from the inside, feeling yourself fully in your body. And taking a moment to connect with our sense of gratitude for these bodies that allow us to experience life. And take a deep breath, just a conscious deep breath, and consciously follow that breath all the way out. And at the end of the exhale, pause for just a moment and clear your mind for just a moment. And then from that quieter place, as the next breath flows in, go ahead and open your eyes. And I'm going to stop. I like this slide a lot, but I'm going to stop the share. And I couldn't access the chat and have the slideshow going, I found. But I'm glad that people contributed. And I'm going to take a quick look at that, right? Because people did share.
Sandy,
as
you're looking over the chat, I just want to reflect and again say thank you so much for sharing. You're such a wisdom weaver. As you are putting together and bringing together and tying together the different wisdom pieces from positive psychology, of course, the ancient wisdom from yoga, philosophy, and modern behavior science. I really love this view of positive psychology as the science of well-being. So how can we show up as conscious choice makers of setting up our environment, not just from the neck up, but using our body, our spaces, our environment, and setting ourselves up for feeling those emotions that will allow us to flow into the upward spiral. And thank you for sharing so many of those different theories from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, from Martin Seligman, Barbara Fredrickson, and Whoop. So I posted some of those links in there. Everybody's loving this presentation. So thank you for that. And before we take Sandy's last share, if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. We have just a few minutes left. But Sandy, back to you for your final shares and comments on the...
Well, I'm looking at the chat. I do want to respond to the chat. So first of all, I want to say I'm so thrilled that the library has my books. I really love that. The Yoga for Computer Users is also available as an ebook. My ebook has been out there for a long time. I'm just thrilled that it's still out there helping people. I will have a new book coming out next year, but it's not on yoga. It's this bigger topic of how mind body. It's not about exercise specifically, although that will be included, but about how mind body integration supports greater well-being. So the question about the slides being available, I see that that they will be available through Optimize, but I do actually have a PDF version that I can send to Maggie and Brooke to make available. I'm happy to do that. And let's see what else people had to say. Going on, oh, walking your dog in terms of well-being. Yes, that's the best. And having a dog, having a pet, also well-being benefits to that. Sunrise walks, I love that. Oh, walk at home. I don't know that. Using walk at home, biking along the trails, treadmill, going to the park and trail. Yeah. All right. So, those are all great suggestions. I'm going to look up walk at home after we, get done. And thank you very much, everybody.
Sandy, thank you.
Oh, and who probably know people, we probably know people in common. It's Lynn, right? We probably know people in common because I was there in the very early days when it was like only 100 people. So, right, everybody knew me.
You guys can connect. So if you guys want, I can connect you too, I think. But Sandy, thank you so much for highlighting. I love this quote. There is no biology without psychology. Let's really
No, it's the other way around.
There is no biology.
There is no psychology without biology.
It's
the other way around. It's right. There's no brain without the body.
Without biology.
There's no psychology without biology. There's no brain without the body. Yep. And in fact, the brain is a physical organ. So this is my last share. It's really crazy that it's taken this long, the past 10 years, for us to understand that things that are good for our bodies are good for our brains in the way that we do now. Like that exercise, of course, is good for your brain because your brain is a physical part of your body. But that nutrition, like nutritional psychiatry, is only now, right, in the last decade, getting like mainstream respect. But it's crazy that you would think that what you would put in your body, like it's not rocket science. It's crazy that what you put in your body would not affect your brain. That's my final share. Let's all be part of this movement.
Thank you for that important clarification. And, if we can imagine a potato head, that's our body. But if we put on our senses, we start to use all of our eyes and our nose and our mouth and our touch, and everything we touch is bringing in that feeding mechanism to our psychology, which helps create those nuggets of thoughts, which turn into the neurochemical reactions that are released in the body as we're creating our body, thought to thought. How are we choosing to look at those habits, those thought patterns that nourish us and catch us on that ride for that upward spiral? Sandy, you're a blessing. You are a wealth of knowledge, and you're a radiant exemplar of everything that we need right now in this world. So thank you again for sharing your time, your heart, and your wisdom.
Thank you so much, everybody. It was very lovely to be here with you. And so I'm available at, it's just sandy.blaine@gmail.com. My website is Sandy Blaine. I'm so easy to find. I'd be happy to hear from any of you, and I will send the PDF on to Maggie and Brooke so that you guys can keep that. It doesn't necessarily have every single thing in the slideshow, but the slides will also be available through.
Yes, whichever slides you'd love to share, we'll follow up. Thank you, Sandy. For those who registered through the library, for those who registered through me, we will get those handouts to you. So please, thank you, everybody. Please post in the chat for Sandy. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. Thank you. We hope to have you back for future episodes as well, because we need more time with you.
Certainly, I'll be doing a lot when I'm really focused on writing.
Yes.
Oh, but in the meantime, I didn't say this. I'm really bad at this piece of it, actually. I do write regularly for a blog, Yoga for Times of Change. It used to be Yoga for Healthy Aging, and now she has a new book coming out, Yoga for Times of Change, and a stable of regular writers. I really recommend that blog. Beyond my pieces, there's just some wonderful stuff there. Yeah.
Beautiful. And we did put in the chat Sandy's website where you can follow up with her and all her amazing writings and talks. International author and speaker, Sandy Blaine. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, everyone.